Thanks for being here. We're going to get started.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, but I know y'all are so excited that Becky is back, and we cannot wait to just have this weekly community with you, Becky, and all your wisdom. So let's get rocking. Just so y'all know, we are recording this, and so if somebody misses, you can always send them. I'll have it up on my website. I'm sure Becky will have it up on her website, and so we'll be able to share as needed. But we value that you are here live because we hope to have some more community building. Have y'all write in the chat as you want to, just to be able to, get people connected and hear what you're really thinking. So with
If you
that,
could go ahead and just write your first name and maybe your children's ages. We are going to make more of an effort to put things in the chat so that we can be intentional, and that we can also be sensitive to what you say and what topics you want and what have you. So don't hesitate to use that chat. We know that parenting is hard work. And as I reflect on it, Peyten, parenting has always been hard work. Children are very complex, and parents don't always expect that when the baby first comes into the world. But I feel like parenting has become even harder, and there are a lot more complications and stressors in your lives. I am walking this path with two of my three children. My two daughters each have a child, and I am even more involved than I was before, and getting real-time examples every day. So in a very timely move, the Surgeon General has put out a new advisory, and it's incredible that it would come out. I copied it so I could read every last word. Parenting has always been hard work, but now the Surgeon General understands that, number one, we need to respect parents. The time spent parenting is so valuable, and it is just as important, if not, I would argue, way more important than time spent at the job. And I don't want to diminish jobs, but you are raising the next generation, and we know that. And I want to support that. See, number two, while parents and caregivers may have the primary responsibility for raising children, they should not have to do it on their own. And so both of those, that one and the next two, really speak to what Peyten and I are trying to do with you, is create a community where you can talk openly about the stress and the problems and bring them here. Every family has struggles. Every single family. We're all in this together. And fourth, how appropriate, we need to foster a culture of connection among parents. And that even though this is virtual, I hope that we can do that, and that you do feel you can reach out to either of us at any point, and each other. And I think you're already doing that.
I think too, it's really helpful to hear that validation as a parent, right? It's like you kind of know it's hard, but then you're going, oh man, this is harder than I thought. And then for the Surgeon General to come out and say, hey, parenting is important. Parenting is hard. We need support. It's one of those things that you kind of know, but then to have it validated so clearly is really helpful. And I do think that, Becky, we talked a lot about this group and wanting this group to be a place where parents can talk about the struggles of parenting, where parents can feel connected, and where we can, help to make this the best parenting experience we can have, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we're going to be here every week. The next slide has a list of what I call family dynamics. Sometimes I call them family systems. systems. And so as we begin the new school year, the summer has been a time to relax on those boundaries, and the kids stay up late and you take trips and you're lazy in the mornings, and it's all wonderful. And then about 10 days ago for Westminster kids, not even quite 2 weeks, everything changed. And so look at that list and think about your plan. Think about, do you have in your head little tips and tricks, structures? You and your spouse have talked about each one of those dynamics that happen every day in your household. Those are the things that Peyten and I are going to address this year. In fact, this fall.
And you know, it's funny, Becky, a lot of times these are the things that, I don't know, if I don't have a plan or if I don't have strategies, I think that's why I got so into parenting. So I was like, if I don't have strategies, these are the things that bring me stress as a parent, right? These are the struggles. What do I do when my kids are bad? Or why can we not get out the door without our shoes on? Or, what is happening? Why are my children not playing together well? Or, wow, my child is really playing. How do I help them transition from play to work? Or are they working too much? Are they stressed out? How do I get them to play a little bit more? And so, yeah, these really are kind of, I think, these pinch points in parenting where if you can get these, then it becomes a lot more relaxing and fun. And there really are strategies. That's the cool thing, right? It's like, oh, it's not like, oh, there's this magic that some people are good at it and some people are not. It's like, yes, if you can apply some of this stuff to your parenting, it will make your life easier. And that's what I love about working with you, because you always make my life easier every week.
Well, thank you. The thing is, it's got to be intentional. And I do remember my prayers every year. Let me be proactive rather than reactive. I want to be proactive. And I think that coming together every Thursday at noon is kind of like a little shot in the arm that can help you be proactive. So when something happens, you're ready for it. You've thought ahead what you're going to do, and you have a plan. So the next slide will help. What I want you guys to do is think about, do you have something from last year or something that you've always been doing that has worked really, really well? And it could be just a little mantra that you say in the morning before the kids get out of school. It could be a little snuggle time that you have before bed, just when all the things are shared, because it's that special time of the day. It could be, I'm going to share with you what my own mother did, which worked incredibly for her 2 generations ago. She had 5 young children under the age of 10, and my dad came home for dinner at 6 and went back to the office. And so bedtime, homework, baths, all of that was up to her, and she had 5 of us. And so what she did was she said, everybody gets a special night. So on the special night, you get to stay up late with mom, one-on-one, and everybody else will be in bed by, I have no idea what time she said. But you don't get your special night unless you cooperate on everybody else's night. And so what a genius she was. And I don't know if it was Sunday through Thursday, or if it included Friday. I don't know. All I remember was my special night and how important that was to me. Certainly within the elementary years, every child values time with mom or dad, one-on-one. Right? That is so special, that attention, that focus, that joint focus on something, whatever you were doing. So that was my mom's thing that worked, that I remember vividly to this day. I think, do I have a list on the next slide?
Yeah.
Go ahead. go ahead. Well, before I start talking about those other ones, and Peyton has stuff to say, but put in the chat your special tip, your go-to strategy, something that has worked for you. Maybe people will see, it doesn't have to be 3 paragraphs, but maybe people will see one that works for them.
Yeah.
Do you have one, Peyton?
I put 2 in the chat, but I'll share the one I laughed. I think there are certain phrases, like when you put this slide up, it made me think there are certain phrases that I say over and over and over again as a parent. And I'm sure everybody has their own, but some of mine, one of them comes from the Moms on Call book. And I learned it when my kids were super little, and it was not no, yes, ma'am, and do it. And it's like when I'm like, hey, it's time to clean your room. And they're like, hold on. I'm like, not no, yes, ma'am, and do it. And that was super helpful when they were little, just to help them learn to be under authority. And I think now that my kids are getting older, I don't say that as much. Now I say, like, I really like the tell me more. Tell me more about why you are upset about this. Mm-hmm. And then the next part of that is usually, what do you think you need to do? There's now, as my kids are getting older, right, trying to put some of that on them. Those are kind of my go-to phrases.
I saw, I spent a lot of time listening to podcasts by Dr. Becky, the parenting expert this summer, and listening to what she had to say. And I loved her mantra, and I could have used it back in the day. She says, "You are a good kid. You're just having a hard time right now." She advocates, staying with her children when they're having a meltdown. And we're going to talk about tantrums and meltdowns in a couple weeks. But I really did like that. Guy, do you have something you want to share?
Not to put you on the spot.
Well, he turned his light on.
Oh, I didn't mean to. I'm sorry.
We like that about you.
Well, no, I mean, I really try to just have a couple of intentional moments. I try to do 2, but usually it's 1 per child, where I just otherwise I will do 3 things at the same time. So if I can just take a moment to look into their eyes and to connect with them on a personal, as a human being, not as my child, that's what I try to do on a daily basis. And I really try to get 2 in, but usually it's 1. But it's kind of special. It really changes my mindset entirely when I talk to them. They're no longer an obligation, a chore, a responsibility. I have to do things or I have to monitor them. It's about what they're going through, what they're experiencing. And I love that.
I love that too. That's awesome. Yesterday, 2 days ago, I had 9 hours with my grandson. And at one point I had my phone open, and I remembered my own advice. They need to know they are important, and that you are not at all times distracted by something else. And I quickly put that away, and was pleased. I do think you have to make those choices every day. I like the magic time, the 15 minutes that the child chooses, not unlike what I got my special night when I was a kid. Number 3, putting my armor on, was my own thing. And what I realize now that I have perspective, that what it was being the adult in the room. I had a very DFK, deeply feeling kid for my firstborn, who was volatile and had a lot of over-the-top emotions. And I could be triggered and just get down and be the same with her and be her peer rather than her parent. And so what I learned as a young parent was what I called putting my armor on. And it was really just being the calm, sturdy leader, the adult in the room. And it worked, because I would see something melting down in front of me, and then I would say that little mantra to myself, put your armor on, and I would stay as the adult.
Becky, I was just thinking about how it looks like in the chat, a lot of people are talking about ways that they really connect with their kids. And you just talked about like really connecting with your kid. And then Becky, you also just talked about kind of this putting the armor on. And there seems to be this in parenting. I feel like there's this beautiful blend of connecting with your child on a very deep and human and respectful and humble level, and at the same time maintaining your authority, which creates safety and structure in a way that your kid really needs. And so I think there's that sort of delicate balance, and there's always this tension as a parent that often we feel. And so I think a lot of these strategies that we're sharing, and thank you all for sharing them in the chat, it's really helpful, is, you know, a lot of us, I don't know about you, but I tend to be more of the put your armor on parent. And so hearing Guy say he's looking at them in the eye, right? Like, I'm like, oh, that is exactly what I needed to hear today, because I'm a little bit weaker in that area. And so I really love seeing all these strategies from y'all, because it helps me become more well-rounded as a parent.
Right, because it is a balance.
Mm-hmm.
I read one of the books I read this summer was called The Importance of Being Little by Erica Christakis. And she did talk about when relationships are solid, they can withstand stress. And so there is going to be stress. There are going to be issues. There are going to be problems as you raise a child. But if you have invested in that relationship and you have spent that time and you have looked into their eyes, then when those bumps in the road, when that turbulence comes, then you have no problem going through it. The last one, I'm just going to say, I'm going to kind of put on a little parentheses. I'm happy to see you when they hop in the car. It's just an extension of something that I was told at a church panel of older women when I was in my late 20s, early 30s. One of the women said, when your spouse walks in the door, make sure that you call out and say, hey, is that you? Welcome home. I'm happy to see you. And literally, I have not missed that opportunity for my 40 years of marriage, because I heard it on a panel when I was young and it made sense to me. And so think about these strategies that maybe you did something once and it really warmed your heart, or it really worked for you. Turn it into a lifelong practice. You can use it on your grandchildren when you're as old as I am.
And you know what? So much of parenting is just remembering. I bet there's not going to be a whole lot on here that we say that people are like, what? I had no idea that I needed to do that, right? It's just the practice of being, you know, so much of parenting is like, we are becoming the people. Parenting, at least for me, is a very refining process. It's like I'm becoming better as a parent because I am being a parent. And I think, you know, we're developing these habits, and we're trying to remember every day to do the things we need to do. And in that, we're forming those habits and becoming better people and better parents. And so you're right, Becky, it's like just the little things that we can do, you know?
Yeah, we know you guys know all the things that we're saying. And that's what I love about Food for Thought. Every Thursday, it's just a reminder. And you're prepared for carpool and dinner tonight and bath and homework and bedtimes, those earlier bedtimes. So we're glad you're here. And I wanted to say with the next slide that, as you know, Habits of the Household is one of my favorite books by Justin Whitmel Early. And he too goes over those family systems, the family dynamics. If you haven't read it, this is a great time of year to read that book. He's coming out with a new one. Turns out he's my niece's lawyer. And so I got to connect with Justin Whitmel Early this summer inadvertently. So that was kind of fun, but he's coming out with a new book. But even his former book called The Common Rule shows his preoccupation with structure. And so the little bit that we have talked about today, all the different family dynamics, your go-to strategies. Think about incorporating all of those structures and being intentional about each one of those, because this statement from his book, we become our habits and our kids become us. So powerful. Think about your habits. If you have a habit like I did of looking at my phone yesterday, I'm not going to have that habit when I'm keeping my grandson. I'm going to swear that one off.
It's interesting. I think there are some habits that are great habits, and then obviously there are some that are not so great. And so sometimes I don't like to think about my not so great habits, like the fact that I look at my phone or whatever. But then there are habits that I'm like, that is a great habit that I have, right? Whether it's modeling, like eating healthy or exercising, right? It's like, what are some things, I'm curious as parents, what are some habits that you think are really powerful that you maybe sense that your children are already picking up on? I'll tell y'all one, maybe y'all can throw a couple in the chat so I can get some ideas of habits I want to cultivate. But my one, for me, is just like, we were in the habit of eating fish once a week, which is like so random. My children still call salmon, or they call salmon chicken. They'll be like, hey, I really like this chicken, Mom. Like, it's not chicken, it's salmon. But because we were in the habit early on of doing it, like a lot of times kids are picky, and mine are certainly picky, but right, it's like the habits you sneak in, it's like, oh, it's not a thing. Whereas if I hadn't done that, maybe now I'd be fighting some battles about like, you need to eat your salmon, salmon, whatever. So are there any habits that y'all have, like whether it's exercising or eating healthy, or even like you don't watch TV at night, but you read? Like, what are some things that you're doing as a parent that you think are rubbing off on your kids?
Because it's good stuff, and I can attest to the fact that it sticks. I may have told you guys this before, but the year Ellen graduated, Charlie graduated from Westminster in 2014, and Ellen graduated from University of North Carolina in 2014, and they both took jobs at the beach. And I was actually taking a Westminster trip to France, upper school trip that summer, but they lived by themselves together at the beach. And if I hadn't had a neighbor that I knew, the next door neighbor said that every night they sat down together at 6 o'clock for dinner at the picnic table. Well, Charles and I have a very structured home, and dinner, just like my home growing up, dinner was at 6. Everybody was there. That's what you did. And sure enough, I have 3 families now represented in my 3 children, and there is dinner with the family every night on the table. You don't think of that as a habit, but it's definitely a habit. Everybody eats, but not everybody sits around the table together for the meal.
We have 2 good ideas in the chat too: volunteering on a routine basis.
Ooh, I love that one.
And then another one is to light a candle at dinner, which signifies that God is at our center, and they blow it out after dinner with a wish and a prayer.
Oh,
These beautiful routines and habits.
that's beautiful. And your children will do that when they grow up.
Yes, they will.
That's beautiful. So in many ways, this first meeting together is to kind of set our intentions. We're going to be intentional about raising our children. We are going to come together. You've got this. We can support one another. If you have topics you want to talk about, please put those in the chat. I just attended a half-day conference on the election and students that actually Westminster Center for Teaching put on yesterday. and had a lot of really, really good ideas. I don't know if you guys want an election episode later toward the end of October. Could be just a general news. What do we do with world news in our families? Anything like that that you think would be good, please put that in the chat. Email us. We are both here and ready to hear your words.
Absolutely. And we, of course, have got lots of resources for y'all. I want to share a couple. As some of y'all know, Becky and I, last year, Becky worked at Westminster. I worked at Westminster a couple years ago, and we have done this food for thought thing for about 2 years now and just love it. But we also are doing some other things. So Becky, do you want to share a little bit about your resources that you have?
I was just going to say that now that I have retired, my passion is really to meet with families, which I have done on Zoom. Families outside of Westminster, within Westminster, just for one-on-one consultations. If people are local, of course, we can meet in person, but my daughter actually has been sending me her friends from California who, if there's school issues, you want to get on the same page with your spouse, you want to talk about your own family dynamics or whatever, this has become my primary interest, and I would love to talk to you about that.
And I would love to partner with you and your school. I run parenting workshops for schools and help them with their parent education programming. And so if your school is interested in anything like that, I'd love to hear from you. Obviously, you can follow us online. My website is Bowbend Consulting. One last quick disclaimer is that Becky and I, while we are wise, are not doctors. So, quick disclaimer on that one, but we'd love your feedback, y'all. If you have ideas, scan that QR code, leave us some ideas of things you want it to be, different, or topics you'd be interested in. Next week on Thursday, we're going to be talking about morning and nighttime routines, which is perfect for this beginning of school. And then one last little plug: on September 15th, I have I'm a positive discipline certified parent to coach. And so I've got a summit for dads coming up September 15th. There's only a few spots left, but if you're interested, you can reach out to me on my website at bowbendconsulting.com, and we'll get you hooked up, or your spouse hooked up if you want to do that. Becky, anything else before we head?
No, we have to stay true to our timing. It's 12:30. We miss you. Please, next week when you're here, just put your light on like Guy did if you want to make a comment and speak out loud. But we value your attendance, and invite your friends. Thanks so much.
Thanks for joining us.